everybody. My name's Aaron. I'm the co-founder, managing director here at BWG Connect. We're a giant networking knowledge sharing group. Spent the last 8 years just talking to brands. I try to hit 20 to 30 a week to stay on top of the newest trends, pain points, strategies, whatever it is that's popping up and shaping digital. And when the same topics come up over and over again, we host an event like this. A couple things. We're starting a little bit after the hour, and just so everybody knows, we're going to wrap up before the end of the hour as well. We're going to give you plenty of time to get on to your next meeting without being late. The other thing is we want this to be as educational and informational as possible. So at any point in time, if you have a question, drop it in the Q&A and we'll get those answered as real time as possible. So don't hesitate to do that. And so I think if we kind of start to tackle this topic as a whole, the title for this one, whose job is it anyway? Bridging legal and marketing for smarter privacy and compliance. There's a huge push right now, and a lot of questions that are going around as there's this big push for personalization and ultra personalization. And along with that comes a lot of issues or pushback, maybe from legal or compliance teams about who should do what, how should you be handling it. And then you have this tug of war sometimes between marketing and the organization, and then legal compliance, whoever it might be. And so we've got some great friends, partners, supporters of the network, at Philly Marketing Labs, as well as Catch, and they're here to, kind of walk us through what's going on as a whole and how they see it. And so, Colleen, can I kick it over to you? Like kind of intro on yourself? That'd be great. And then we can jump into it. Sound good?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks.
And you want to go around the horn to everybody else, and then, yeah, that'd be awesome.
You bet. Hey, folks, my name is Colleen Berry. I am head of marketing at Catch. We're a data privacy software company. Thrilled to be here with you all. I am a marketer at heart and privacy by osmosis. As I've spent the last 4 years at Catch, it's become a passion area for me. I lead a couple of our ongoing series, talking with privacy experts, lawyers all the time about so much changing in the privacy landscape. And so happy to be here today to talk to you all about the intersection of these two areas. Over to you, Justin.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Colleen. I'm Justin. I'm a product manager here at Catch. I work mainly on our consent management and data subject rights products, and also a little bit with our customers on implementation. So great to be here. And over to you, Bechara.
Thank you. Bechara Jaoudeh, I'm the CEO of Philly Marketing Labs. We're a digital marketing agency specializing in paid media as well as website design and development, and we wrap everything we do in analytics. So given that, we've worked with Catch on over 40 implementations across D2C and informational websites, and we've tackled this issue of privacy and data collection limitations and things like that for our clients. So I'm super happy and excited to be here and to chat about this.
Awesome. So just a quick reminder for those of you who joined, drop questions you have in the Q&A and we'll get them answered real time. So this is that spot. I don't know if you guys have seen the same thing, and it was kind of just that open conversation around, to get us started is this push in my mind, what I'm hearing from brands to ultra personalization. Obviously, you're talking about if it's wrapped in data, it has to be tied into data. The consent side, like there is this push and the pull. Like, is this like, how do you view it? Is it a legal challenge? Is it a marketing challenge? Is it both? Who gets in? I'm just going to kind of kick it off there because it's kind of a touchy subject at times. But would love to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I can tell you that if you don't tackle it as a marketing and legal challenge, it becomes exclusively a legal challenge, and you get yourself in really bad hot waters, right? So, for our clients, it is our accountability as marketers to have awareness of the legal consequences and the privacy consequences of our campaigns and the types of beacons and trackers and tracking needs, and include legal in the conversation as we are crafting and shaping these campaigns so we don't end up in a legal situation, I can say. But Colleen, I'm sure you deal with this all the time.
I mean, I think you're exactly right, Bechara. It's kind of like marketing's ball to lose if they want. I mean, the reality is that data privacy from a legal perspective, it's a legal problem and it's a risk to the business. And so if they see it, they're going to try to solve it in the way that they know how, right? And so they'll treat it like a legal risk issue, and may look for processes and tools that solve it from that legal lens. But from a marketer standpoint, we know that when it comes to being asked about data privacy, it's more often less of a legal problem and more of a data problem. And what are you going to do with my data? And how is it going to hamstring or hamper what I'm trying to do? And so I think it only behooves marketing teams to get involved as early as possible in how is the organization trying to tackle this, because then you can really get in the conversation early to encourage processes and cross collaboration and tooling that supports data-driven initiatives and doesn't, hampers it as little as possible.
So is this driven then now by marketers as a whole? I think it's come up enough. There's been enough instances in just people sharing stories of it finally making it to legal, and when it makes it to legal, it's because something bad has happened. Right? Are you just hearing more and more of this just from the marketer side that they're like, hey, we need to get ahead of this? Because, like, to your point, we want to use a tool that helps us out. We don't want legal to choose a tool because they will. A lot of times, this is so new for a lot of companies right now, especially in the digital and online space of handling it. A lot of the inside, I mean, I came from big corporate America that the the in-house counsel had no idea how to handle this. They weren't experts, and in that case, they over-index on ultra
Exactly.
conservative.
Yeah, they lean very heavy on tools that give them comfort, right? So legal teams within companies are risk averse. They're there to protect the company, and in the absence of education and a collaboration and open communications between them and the data teams and the marketing teams, they're going to over-index towards being very conservative, and that puts blinders on for the rest of the organization. So you can't it would be so limited for the marketing teams and the data teams to collect the data, and therefore they'll be making decisions based on smaller subsets of data, which ends up giving them blinders. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think, and I've seen teams when they're using a legal based kind of solution or tool or approach, like one of two things is typically happening, either as you're saying, Bechara, like the data streams get cut off unnecessarily and data-driven projects are hampered, or the company ends up not actually respecting consumers' privacy choices because the tool ends up being just kind of a facade or cookie banner on the website that's not actually connected to any systems in the back, which I guess, hey, from a marketer standpoint, maybe you're okay with that. And
Check the box.
ignorance is bliss, right? But if you're actually saying, no, I want to try to respect my consumers' privacy choices, that's not good either, because then it's just this facade, Hollywood facade of privacy compliance that's not actually doing anything to consumer data.
But there is a way for legal and marketing to work together. I draw a lot of analogies between privacy and sustainability, right? Sustainability started its life as a government mandated, regulatory mandated type of initiative, right? Mitigate your carbon footprint, filters, like things along those lines, right? With privacy, it's the same thing, right? California or GDPR started in Europe, and then CCPA and CPRA in California, where they now afford certain rights to their citizens and their residents. But I think if we take the opposite approach, where as a company, we can lead with a marketing message that, hey, we respect the privacy of our visitors on our websites, and we want to disclose and be transparent in showing them what third-party trackers are firing on our website and how we handle their data and how we sell their data and how we remarket based on their data. That positions you in a position of honesty as a company, and you can take this legal compliance, right, and turn it into a positive PR or a positive message, and positions your company as a transparent and honest organization. So when played correctly, and maybe played is the wrong word, but when implemented correctly, it can actually serve to humanize the brand and show it in a light of honesty.
I think,
Yeah.
but sorry, Colleen, Bashar, it's interesting. I think also the having a tool that provides good observability is something that I think helps to unite the teams at these different companies. So like often I'll see a legal team comes to us and it's like, oh, we just need a better idea of what is marketing doing with all of this data. And so if you can have a tool that kind of gives you this observability, then it really opens the door for it to be more of a collaborative process, I think, across the org between legal and marketing and just, all legal doing it. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and to the consumer as well, to the visitor, right? So what I like about Catch, when we do the privacy policy section, there's like a widget that shows you all the third-party trackers that are utilized on the website and who the vendors are. So there's tremendous transparency into who the third-party trackers and what the use of that data collection is. So this way, yes, it's intra-company, but also it's to the visitor. So it's perfect transparency.
Is there like an audit then? Like, I'm just thinking for people on the line today, like, what is that audit? Like, what is first step to look at? Hey, am I vulnerable right now? Because that's at the end of the day what it's going to be, right? Because it's going to get to legal. Like, how does somebody step away and do an audit? Like, hey, these are the major things that are popping up right now that we need to send up red flags on.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, I think one of the most inherently risky areas to the business right now is data collection on the website, right? Like to the points Justin and Bechara were just making. There's a lot of tags, trackers, pixels, beacons that are flying around across these network requests. And most teams have, it's challenging to get a handle from privacy or marketing on all the activity that's happening. So that's a area that's very inherent with risk. And the thing that adds to that risk is that when we look at privacy regulations in the United States right now, this is what regulators are focused on as well. The front end website data collection. For whatever reason, US privacy laws are very focused on putting themselves in the consumer's shoes and seeing, does this experience make sense for the consumer? As we were saying, is it transparent? Does the consumer have control? And so that's all about what happens when a consumer goes to the website. Like, is the opt-in process streamlined? Does the business introduce dark patterns or weird things when I try to opt out of data sharing? And so with the regulations focused on that, and then with it being an area that's inherently risky, I think that's a perfect place to start for many companies, just doing a very comprehensive scan of data collection and network requests on the website to find out what trackers are on my site, where am I sending data, where am I sending sensitive data on the site. That's a great place to start. But I'd be curious, Bechara, how you're advising your customers.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think a scan is the way to go. Oftentimes, when 2, 3 years ago, when we started having these discussions with our clients, they would naively send requests to the various agencies and say, "Hey, what do you have implemented on our website?" And you would be shocked with the turnover of agencies within organizations, with the utilization of off-the-shelf templates. Like, we once scanned a WordPress website that was built using one of those $12 templates that you buy from Theme Forest or one of those websites. And the developers of these themes have beacons and trackers baked into their template. So as an organization, you never place those, right? If you just mom and pop downloaded a website, downloaded a theme, built a website based on it, you may have third-party trackers that you had no clue existed. But guess what? They're loading on your server. That's your website, and you're accountable for who is accessing that data. And in the scope of privacy, giving a third party access to your data constitutes a sale. Most people think, oh, our website, we as a company, we don't sell your data. But sell, and I put that in quotes, the definition of selling data is very different. That is not an exchange of goods and services for money. That is the definition of sale of data goes well beyond that, right? When you transfer data to a third party, even if it's not in exchange for cash, that is still a sale, right? And you will still be kind of caught in that definition. So it's really important to Colleen's point, is you leveraging a tool that allows you to scan your website from a software perspective and understand what is being tracked and who it's being sent to, and then have that inventory. That's the very first step in understanding that. And then the second step is understanding purposes, right? So we want to figure out, what are the trackers, what are the third-party trackers, and how are we using them? Are we using them for the site to function? Are they essential? Are we using them for customization? Are we using them for data analytics? Are we using them for audience targeting and similar audiences? So obviously, as marketers, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox, and identifying and setting the purposes are the first two steps that we take on.
Absolutely. Actually, and just seeing the questions in the chat, Katie, I think your
Mhm.
question about the ambulance chasers with the lawsuits is so closely related to this topic, right? I've never heard anyone frame it as the new ADA, but maybe.
It
But
is.
But the answer is yes, we're seeing a lot of this. I think in the Catch customer base across just about every vertical, media companies, retailers, e-commerce, most of our customers have been hit with some kind of demand letter accusing the brand of doing some kind of pixel activity on the website that the plaintiff's attorney is equating with wiretapping. And that's exactly what these ambulance chasers are doing today. They're pulling up these old 1960s and 70s wiretapping laws and saying that having a pixel on your website, often attached to video, right? So if you're tracking a consumer on your site, watching a video, monitoring those analytics, these plaintiffs' attorneys are equating that pixel with wiretapping and sending demand letters to brands saying you're in violation of this law, pay up. And because so many brands don't have these scanning mechanisms in place, a lot of folks are settling and just trying to just making it go away with the payment. And one way to combat against that and have a defense for that is to have a kind of detailed, comprehensive scanning tool in place so that when you get a letter like this, you can say, actually, no, this is what we're doing. This is how we're tracking. And you have a little bit more of a defense when it comes. But yeah, the ambulance chasers are all over the place right now, mostly related to those SEPA and VIPA, VPPA are the most common laws we're seeing those plaintiffs' attorneys take advantage of.
Yeah, we have several clients that have received demand letters like these, and we see settlements anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000 to make them go away. And oftentimes, these enterprises are paying that because it's far cheaper than litigating it or anything else.
A few more questions that drop in here. This is interesting from Todd. Will an AI agent working on my human behalf count for privacy rules at this time? That's interesting.
From
Yeah.
what perspective, though, are you saying does the AI have, like, if let's say you have an AI running on your machine in California, will that AI have the same rights as you do as a human person in California? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I think from the agentic side, a lot
Yeah,
of people start using ChatGPT or OpenAI, whatever it is, Claude, Perplexity as a tie-in with who are they tying in right now? I think on the Shopify side, where basically it can go out and make the purchase for you.
right.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know, I'm curious of your answer, Colleen, but from an agentic side of the equation, I feel like the agent is working on your behalf and it is oftentimes logged in as you, it's using your PII, your personally identifiable information, and therefore they're just simply a proxy for you. Now, maybe the actions the AI is taking on your behalf or the agent is taking on your behalf, there may be a distinction, but I'm not aware of a distinction between an agent working on your behalf or you directly. I don't know if there's a distinction about that in the current law.
I think that this is a pretty hot topic right now. I think that with a lot of the agentic stuff out there, it's pretty hard to tell that it's not the person that's
Right.
controlling it. I think in the eyes of the law, uh, the answer might technically be no. But again, it's just really hard to say, and I think it's really shaking out. But that's super interesting. It's definitely going to keep coming up, right?
the other question, and others keep dropping them in the Q&A, and we'll get to them for sure. How does the transparency work with clean rooms when retailers and brands partner for targeting to ensure both are following the highest level of standards of either brand or retailer? So a little bit left to center with clean rooms. So I'm thinking, even at Amazon or Walmart's done a huge advances right now on sharing, when I say it's first party data. I understand where it's coming from. Maybe it's a whole nother webinar on the sharing and privacy rules in regards to retailers and marketplaces. So
Yeah.
just put a, I mean,
certainly could dovetail into another conversation. I think there's a lot of FUD out there about clean rooms, right? Like you'll often hear folks say, well, we both put it in the clean room. And so I think it's just like a washing machine, and that means that it's good and it's clean and it comes out the other side all good, but that's not quite the case. Typically on both sides of the brand, you do need to have some privacy tech in place to still attach permissions to that data and make sure you're reflecting your consumers' needs. So yeah, I think, clean rooms alone aren't going to solve privacy and permissioning challenges for the data within, but there's lots of complexities that surround that.
It's also very interesting. It'd be interesting to hear, like, so right now, all the talk around, you're talking about agentic AI now, but AI as a whole and all of these tools, there's a huge push from organizations to get as much data as possible, because that's what you feed all of these AI tools and agents or engines or whatever you're going to use, is clean data. So we're trying to harvest right now as much data as possible. It's, do you see instances where I like the full scan approach, where you have like business units that never should be collecting data, but have started doing it because they need to feed their own, and then that sends off a red flag within it. Because this hyper personalization push right now is achievable if you have enough data. So there's a huge push for data collection.
Well, as long as you're collecting it with the correct permissions and with the correct terms, and you've made it clear to the end consumer how and why you are capturing their data, and give them an opt-out mechanism, then go crazy, right? We're talking about compliance with the communication of the collection of data. And we are also talking about the ability to propagate a request to delete someone's data or give them access or modify that data when they request to do so, right? So those are the two sides of the equation. From there, once that's communicated fairly and accurately, then feed the feed the AI, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. But I think the challenge is that so much data that's already made its way into the business or still making its way is dirty data, because those practices on the front end aren't lined up correctly.
Right.
We ran a study on this at Catch last year, looked across like 140 of the top US websites, biggest brands and retailers. And we looked across all the trackers and tags that they have. We use kind of browser emulators to actually simulate a consumer visiting this site, right? Every single brand site. And we emulate what happens on the site when a consumer hasn't done anything in the opt-out or cookie banner, and then what happens after the consumer's opted out, what's still firing from a tag perspective, right? And so what we found was, first of all, across all those brands, about 55% on average of the trackers on a website are somehow privacy related or dependent, right? Like 55% has to do with analytics or advertising or something that should be toggled on or off according to privacy preferences. And then of those 55%, 40% of those trackers kept firing after consumers opted out. So it's kind of staggering the amount of tags that don't respect consumer preferences after opt out of data sell or share. And honestly, I mean, my perspective as a marketer, I think for most part, this is not nefarious. I don't think marketers or people are trying to be sneaky. I think it's just very technically challenging on the front end to get a grasp on everything you have and then make sure it's connected appropriately, right? It's like we were talking about the Hollywood facade with that cookie banner, right? If your cookie banner isn't integrated to your Google Tag Manager or whatever tag manager you're using and tied to those tags, you're not going to stop firing. And so that front end infrastructure is so, so critical to make sure that dirty data doesn't make its way into your org. Because you're exactly right, Aaron. If it gets into the business and now everybody's trying to adopt AI and test out agentic and models and stuff, if you've got that consumer data in your business, you're going to end up beating it for sure.
Yeah, I just look at just while you're talking, I'm thinking about all the times that banner pops up and I can select the cookies and the tracking and everything. I've never really trusted if it actually worked or not, right? And I'll say necessary only. And kind of what you're saying is most of the time is, and again, I agree with you, it's not nefarious. It is difficult to set up. If you're on the marketing team, you're not on the web dev team in most cases, right? And you're putting a request in to have it added, and they just put it in, and then it gets executed and rolled out, and then it's on there. And then how do I, as a marketer, even, again, without a tool, right, part of the reason we have this, right? This call today is without a tool, how do you don't know. You just assume it's working and you feel you're covered.
No,
Maybe I
and
totally
there's
missed it, but
no, I think you're right. And I think there's a lot of fragmentation in the way trackers are treated internally. So we work with a lot of large enterprise, and there are multiple marketing agencies. So let's say we're running paid media, and there's another agency that's running paid social or anything else. But let's say paid social for an example. They come in with a third party tool and they say, hey, put this third party tracker on the site. We say, fill out the sheet, right? We have an SOP for how to add, and we did this in collaboration with the legal department. They will say, here's the vendor, here's the tag, here's where we want it to fire, and purpose is data analytics. Fine. We put it on the website. The campaign, the first campaign they run is indeed just they're using this for tracking. Next thing you know, the results are great. They tell the brand managers like, hey, we can take the data we collect and we can create a similar audience, and we can create some personalized tracking. The brand manager authorizes a budget and they go and do it. They never come back to us and say, hey guys, by the way, the original purpose was tracking. Now the purpose is also targeting. So to your point, Aaron, when you visit a website and you say necessary only, personalization, remarketing, right? So we have to now change the purpose of that tag in a platform like Catch to say, okay, now this is data analytics and tracking. So when the visitor comes to the site and says, I'm allowing tracking, but I'm not allowing personalization or retargeting, then they don't get retargeted, right? And that's where the company may think, oh, we've implemented Catch, we created purposes for every tag we have, and everything is good. And then a single marketing agency that is disconnected from this entire process makes a change to their approach without telling us or telling legal. Now you're not compliant anymore, just like that. So it's very easy, and it's not nefarious, like Colleen said, it is difficult to set up. If you set it up correctly, a small agent within your organization that is disconnected from this process can make a small change that puts you in a non-compliant situation. So that's the challenge there. So that's why everybody has to work together, and the SOPs have to be very, very well enforced. And there's an education component that needs to be done, not just internally with all the agencies that work with that client.
it's
I feel like I'm
unbelievable.
preaching, but we see it
No,
all the time. It is so frustrating.
no, it's just super interesting because it just is more complicated. And in my mind, it is a legal issue that the marketing team, for its own benefit, has to address. And it's usually a very, very technical piece that's hard for them to do. So it's good that there's a tool out there. And yeah. Some other questions that are rolling in. Will AI shopping agents make first party data more relevant, less relevant, or have no impact on advertisers?
I don't know. Interesting question.
I have my I think it's more.
I think it's going to be, I think we're going in that direction. I think we're at a time right now where brands are having a hard time monetizing like AI snippets and things like that, or not monetizing, but participating in AI snippets on, like, you go to Google, right, and you do a search and you get that AI snippet. Currently, it's very organically driven, right? This is the Google AI on its own crawled the website, generated an answer, put it up there. So right now the brands are a little bit like out of control there, but we're headed in a direction where advertisers and brands will be able to influence those through paid media. And that's when the brands will have an active participation and an active role in what the AI is returning. And I think their accountability is going to go up as far as what appears there and where it's coming from.
Awesome. What companies are, and thanks everybody for dropping questions, just keep dropping in, we'll get to them. What companies are doing this legal and marketing dance the best currently?
That's a great question. I mean, it's always hard to tell from the outside, certainly, right? Like you got to run that scan to see how they're actually respecting opt-outs.
And let me just I'm going to throw a little spin on it. How many people, when you engage, are doing it well? And how many people, if you had to guess on a percentage wise, are missing it? Like you jump in every time and like every single time it's like, wow, we need to have a lot of cleanup, or most cases people are 90% of the way there.
I don't think I've met a legal or marketing team that says they're doing an amazing
Yeah.
job. I mean, the teams I speak with that feel there's teams I speak with that feel pretty good about it. And usually they have regular syncs across the teams, like they're regularly talking, they meet about it. I think far and away the biggest challenge is this issue that we've talked about so much today with just this tag and cookie and tracking issue on the website. Like that seems to be one of the biggest pain points. But I
Yeah.
anyone that's saying we're nailing it. What do you think,
No,
Bechara?
no, I mean, 99% of the clients we speak with and the brands we speak with are not doing it at all. They're in complete, uh, disarray. And they come to us and they say, oh, our legal department or our private equity firm or so and so said that this is a gap in our organization. So we come in and do an audit, and typically we're starting them from scratch. The ecosystem is so young that there are many, many more companies out of compliance than there are in compliance. And I think the only time you're going to find companies in compliance or near compliance, I would say, is if they already implemented a platform and they're in the process of switching platforms or comparing platforms to each other. But the vast majority of who we deal with have no platform in place, no systematic approach to privacy whatsoever. To answer your question around who's doing it well, for the longest time, we were using Sephora as the example, because Sephora was one of the marquee cases that California Attorney General went after them for privacy. So they got a big slap on the wrist with a big fine. And logic dictates that since they dealt with this to the satisfaction of California's Attorney General, they are doing a better job, hypothetically or logically, than the rest. So we typically look at their practices and see what they're doing.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bashara. I've actually seen the same since the California agency targeted Honda.
Honda, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, since Honda was targeted, for those who didn't see, I think in the spring, they targeted Honda with a big settlement accusing them of bad opt-out practices. So dark patterns, creating a lot of friction for consumers to opt out. Since then, an industry body, Privacy for Cars, who looks at privacy in cars, they've recently just released a study of like 50 top automobile manufacturers and how they're handling privacy. And Honda scored like a 5.0 in almost every category. So they've shored things up since then.
Yeah.
Honda is maybe an example. And then the last thing that occurs to me is that, I mean, I think often a good signal that teams are doing this right is when you see really creative, transparent notices and ways that people are sharing how they handle your privacy. I think a brand that does that really well today is Lego. If you visit their privacy policies and look at what they actually have like the most adorable videos for kids about here's what we do with your data, and it's little animated Lego characters. And I think that's probably a good signal that their marketing team and privacy teams are talking together and figuring out how do we want to make this a real part of the consumer journey online and not just check the boxes.
Awesome. Yeah, another question. Are there rules regarding how often a website must display the cookie consent banner to a returning visitor? I'm seeing them more often on sites I visit regularly. And I do want to dig into that one a little bit from the standpoint of it does seem to cause friction. But like Bashar, at the beginning, you were talking about, hey, how can you turn this into a competitive advantage? Is there a message that you're putting up there like, hey, we're asking this of you every time because we care about your data? That's different than strictly necessary, whatever it is, like as you're going through. Are there rules around how often you have to display that?
Well, Justin, I know you got to jump in here, but if a company is displaying that over and over to you and you're a regular visitor, I think it might more be a issue of their inability to recognize you as a consumer, right?
Seems like a system issue. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a few things. It could be an identity thing, as Colleen's saying, like you just don't know that you are the same person that you were before, which is concerning. Also, could be something changed, in their legal standpoint. So perhaps they've added a new purpose. That's a moment where in theory you're supposed to re-prompt the user. So there's a few things there, but it's interesting.
Yeah, you should not there. I don't think there's a law that states that you have to remind them every 30 days or something like that. But managing their preferences should be evident on the website on the site, and giving them a mechanism through which they can go back and revise the permissions they've given or submit a deletion request or an access request. Like that should be prominently displayed, generally in the footer, and there's acceptable language that you should use to link to it. So that is important. But keep prompting them. It seems like a technical issue rather than them being overly transparent. With that being said, we work with a lot of over-the-counter pharmaceuticals that deal with either like personal hygiene or feminine wellness and sensitive topics, right? Where being more communicative about your privacy practices and linking to the pages on the site that show the visitor what preferences they have chosen and giving them an ability to modify them is better for the brand. It gives peace of mind. It introduces less friction and gives us a deeper sense of privacy to the visitor. If you are one of those brands, there are definitely practices that apply to you. There are best practices that may not be mandated by law, but common sense and common practices dictates it. So you may choose to do things a little bit differently. So the subject matter matters.
That's a great point. And sensitive data is such a hot topic in the US and privacy laws now. It's just an expanding category of what is considered sensitive. So I think that's probably smart of brands to level up that kind of transparency when they're collecting that kind of data.
I think another interesting thing that's kind of related to this is that we're seeing some companies are moving away from the traditional cookie banner approach when you first go to the site, and instead leveraging these more opportune moments to ask for consent. So you can imagine like the moment you hit add to cart on a website, this could be a good moment to say, hey, do we have your consent to use your data for personalization so we can give you better product recommendations in the future? We're seeing some customers move towards that type of approach because most people are just trained at this point to say no on the cookie banner. But if you can leverage that moment of like a value exchange, it can be beneficial. So.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, Justin. That's what's so exciting for marketers about getting involved in this conversation right now, because the tech has actually caught up to give you the ability to do that, embed these choices at relevant contextual moments. And so now we're moving away from like privacy is a growth lever. That is like that kind of lip service to like, you can embed these choices and design it as part of your journey. And now it's becoming a real lever in first party data collection, right? Instead of just a kind of empty promise.
Yeah, and I think one thing we didn't talk about is the difference between jurisdictions too. And this is why there's a need for a platform, right? So what we like about Catch is the ability to tailor the privacy treatment for each jurisdiction based on the compliance requirements for it. So California gets treated differently than Pennsylvania, right? So that allows you to remain compliant but collect more data, albeit the data coming from Pennsylvania will be collected at a higher clip or a faster clip than it is from California, but still it feeds the marketer and gives them what they need. Now we have clients that are very risk averse, and they come to us and say, we want to apply GDPR, which is meant for the European Union, to every state in the United States. And that's fine if that's a strategic decision that they made given their business circumstances. But you don't have to do it that way, and you can still capture more data from states that allow it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very common use case for us, Bechara, when companies will come to Catch because they're expanding into Europe from US and have to figure out GDPR. And it's nice to have the dynamic ability to show the right notices and collect the right data. In the US, it's actually been a really interesting progression, because when CCPA and a couple of the first US state laws first came out, we were seeing exactly what you just said. Clients would choose like to dynamically display different
Mm.
rights in those few states that required it. And then, open season,
Yeah.
rest of the states. Now we're like 20 plus US states have laws. And now we're actually seeing some clients return to, if it's this many states, and I want folks to have kind of a similar experience across different locations, folks are going back to kind of if it's this many, maybe I should just do a US approach versus state by state. So
Yeah.
now it's become a really interesting, decision for the brand and the in-house counsel.
Yeah. Well, I hope the US stops being so fragmented. I mean, we want
Right.
the federal government, like the easy solution here is the federal government comes in and says this is the law of the land and it's the same across all the states. And that would make everybody's life easier. And there's less ambiguity in that. Write to your congressman, folks.
Yes, Washington has problems. I don't know. Every privacy lawyer I've talked to is not expecting a federal law anytime soon.
Well, of course they don't, because they want it to stay fragmented. It keeps them in business.
That's true. Lots of hours to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kitty drops here, catches to data privacy compliance like Avalara is to tax compliance, right? Like
Amen. That's true.
It's very true.
That is very
Because I
true.
agree, most people, they just the initial step is just that blanket GDPR CCPA approach, just apply it to everybody and then I can set it and forget it. And I understand that from the business owner standpoint, just the catch-all, but from a marketer and even the sales team and performance team, like you're asked to do more, and the more data you can have, the better job you can do, and you need these levers to pull on and off. You just can't do the job as well as you could. You're being hamstrung for sure. Um, are there key things that pop up all the time that we didn't get to? I mean, there's just been a ton of questions. But are there things that come up routinely that we didn't get to that are top of mind for you in this space? And that can be open to anybody.
One thing I think is top of mind from the marketers I've talked to with lately is just the concept of preference management and preference centers. I think this is still a big hurdle for a lot of marketers. Making it look pretty is one thing, but just the technical implementation of it can be really tricky. There's some brands doing it well, but a lot are using homegrown solutions. It can be challenging, and especially with privacy becoming just more pervasive requirement. In our view, it's a really natural conversation to have together. This idea of how do we think about privacy choices and then marketing comms preferences and making that a unified experience for the end user, right? We think about those separately from the brand side, but when you're a consumer, it's all just a bundle of choices, and we want to make it as easy as possible for them to kind of exercise how they want to communicate with your brand. So I would just flag that I think that's another interesting area where the marketer has an opportunity to bring those two initiatives together and think about what's the best experience I can create for my consumer.
Yeah, I think another area that's really important and it causes anxiety for some of our clients is data subject requests, right? And how they can be handled. And you can handle them manually. So this is somebody coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm a resident of California, and I have the right to ask you to delete my information, and go ahead and delete it. And you need to comply and make me aware that you complied within X amount of days." So automating that for like imagine if your company worked with Klaviyo for email, Attentive for text message, Google Analytics, Google Ads, Facebook. There could be at least 10 platforms that your company is connected to in addition to your CRM system and ERP system and all of that, right? So now you want a signal, that deletion request needs to propagate across all your vendors and delete that individual because it is their right to ask you to do so. And doing that manually is very, very tedious. So having a DSR automation strategy and platform in place is super important.
What is the timing of a rollout with a catch? Is there like a pre-audit? Is there what does that look like? Because I think a lot of people are like, yeah, okay, but how long does it take?
It really varies according to the customer and the brand. Most folks who start with Catch start with consent management, right? That front end cookie banner, consent banner piece. That can be up in a matter of days, if not weeks, right? One of my favorite stories is Butterball Turkey reached out to us the day before Thanksgiving and needed a solution. And I'm not joking when I say we had a solution up for Butterball Turkey within like 3 hours with one of our customer success reps. So it can happen in a matter of hours, getting the tag live on the website to display the consent banner. But I would say average customer, maybe 3 to 6 weeks, and they're up. Anything you would add there, Justin?
Yeah, I think you know the Butterball one's a great example. I think it's always about the forcing function too. Like sometimes like, oh, I got this demand letter. Oh my God, like what do we have to do? Figure this out really fast. Other times it's more of a slow burn of trying to set up say your like rights automation across all your different internal systems to go and delete data from there. That type of thing can take a little bit longer. But yeah, definitely in days to weeks, you know. Yeah.
It brings in here another question. Which department typically signs and pays the catch statement of work contract? Yeah, where do you fall? You fall to
Really good
legal? Do you
question.
go to go to legal? I'm pushing it on legal. That's what I'm doing if I'm marketing, but
I wish it was a simple answer. Oftentimes it starts with legal because typically if folks are considering catch, they're looking at us as a modern replacement for a more legal lens. So it's usually the legal person maybe starting the evaluation, but often, again, like I said, this is not a legal challenge only anymore, it's a data problem. And so when we're looking at catch, then they always bring in an IT counterpart, someone in the CISO or CIO team, and then of course a marketing counterpart. And so sometimes the budget is split across. I would say typically the signature coming from legal or IT often, and marketers usually just a key champion in the deal. But I will say, like Justin was talking about these progressive consent things we're seeing lately, increased interest in preference centers. I think marketers are gradually shifting from kind of a key champion or stakeholder to someone that can actually champion a privacy project. But what are you seeing, Bechara? Like,
Yeah, I mean, on our side, what we see is legal is definitely signing the contract, but the payment is coming out of either marketing or IT's budget, oftentimes IT. But yes, it's the legal department that's paying for it. But our experience is that typically legal departments don't have as big budgets as market, or not as fluid budgets that aren't like defined year after year. So we see IT paying for it or marketing.
that's interesting. Yeah. I can see it falling to IT for sure. I mean, it's a tech solution at the end of the day. But integration, if it can be done in a few weeks, that's awesome. Like, are there any like besides hey, I just got a letter saying, hey, we're coming after you. Are there any other like major things where you have people reach out like this happened and now we need to throw something like this in place? Is it
Data
usually
subject requests, yeah. Data subject requests, somebody's asking to delete or access their data, and they're like, we don't have a mechanism for it.
oh, that
mm-hmm.
makes complete sense.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Delete it all.
Yeah,
How do you know if it's done, right?
right. Well, you have to verify their identity first. I mean, there are a few steps, right? So that workflow is very, very important. And that's the other side, right? You want to allow people to manage their preferences, but also you want to be able to execute on their DSRs. And more and more states are giving those rights to their residents. So we have to have a mechanism in place to do it wholesale. And also, like a lot of people think, like, oh, this resident in California woke up one day and became privacy aware and sent this email directly to Nike.com or Apple or whatever brand you choose. That's not how it works. There are privacy platforms there are reaching out, their marketing is to sign up consumers that want to delete their info. And what you do is you connect, like Accessibility is one of them, right? So you go on to Accessibility, you give them access to your email, they crawl your email and they auto send hundreds and thousands of emails to people that you've done business with, right? So that is the process. And a big brand may receive thousands of those a month, so it cannot be done manually, and there's a accountability for you to do it correctly. So you have to verify their identity, then you have to propagate the signal to all your vendors, right? And then you have to get confirmation that it's been done, and you have to communicate back to that visitor or that consumer and say, hey, we did delete your stuff.
That is awesome. as we kind of get to the end here, I'd love to go around the horn with like key takeaways. Justin, I'll start with you, and then Colleen, if you want to go, and then Bechara. Does that sound good here? Like key takeaways for everybody as we get to the end of the webinar here.
Yeah, sure. I think big one for me is just the movement from this sort of generic cookie banner on the site to kind of weaving in the user's privacy choices to the experience as you progress, and that's both a way to get more data to leverage as an organization, and then just build trust with your users. So that's the key one for me.
I'd say if I'm in a marketer's shoes right now, in-house in a brand, I think the takeaway is that, I mean, largely we've been avoiding or only dealing with legal teams as much as we absolutely have to, right? But the tech has caught up to a place where, as we were just saying, you can actually start to weave in privacy and consent into your consumer's experience. And we're all precious about the real estate on our websites, the pop-ups and what we're doing. And now we live in a world where you don't have to just accept that the big cookie banner that legal tells you have to use, that doesn't have to be the normal. As Justin's saying, there's other ways to do it, and the tech is ready to support embedding privacy throughout the digital journey. So I would encourage marketers to maybe, have a few more beers with the legal team and find out what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, my takeaway is going to answer also the last question that we just received from the anonymous attendee. They're very privacy aware. So the question is, how do you ensure brands, agencies are doing things in a privacy compliant way? The brand, the speakers, companies, or agencies are just doing what they want. Agencies will do what they want. So it is an accountability on the legal department and the brand to educate and make sure all their agencies, their brand managers are on the same page and put in place SOPs that have a certain sense of redundancy in them that ensures compliance. You are not, even if you wave a magic wand and get Catch implemented within a couple of weeks, wrap all your tags properly, get everything right. Like we said earlier, one simple change on an agency that they can do on their own platforms will impact your compliance status. So education, so everybody's on the same page, because you'll be surprised. There are social media agencies, there are paid media agencies that have no clue about privacy. They've never been asked for it because it is not their accountability, right? But you want to make sure that your legal department is speaking to your marketing department, but also is educating everybody. So there's this sense and culture of privacy first. So it is top of mind when there's any change going into effect.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks everybody for the great questions and the conversation that came in through the Q&A. Justin, Colleen, Bechara, thanks so much for being great friends, partners, supporters of the network. Encourage everybody to follow up with the team at Philly Marketing Labs or the team at Catch. More than happy to send over connections after this. Look for an email from me as well. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Pick your brain on the biggest pain points you're dealing with, the next topics for the call, and the best partners that you have around. But with that, we're going to wrap up this webinar here. Thanks everybody for listening in. Everybody take care, stay safe, and look forward to having you at a future event. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.